especially if you're following this whole thing with light and electromagnetic energy and consciousness and how they all interact to create our experiences and our reality. Uh, it turns out that light, a new study was just published that established that light performs exactly the task that I suspected that it does, and now we know kind of exactly how. So, a bunch of interesting stuff to talk about tonight. Yo, what's up? And I'm sorry I'm late, but there was a monster. Um, this thing last night, I went outside to because the puppies were crying. One of the puppies had fallen down the stairs, and the mom was crying. So I went out with a flashlight to help the puppy. And as I was coming back up, there was this like spider thing with claws, and I mean it was crazy looking, the size of a tarantula, and really long legs like whipping around, and claws. Spiders don't have claws, right? It was a spider with claws. And so tonight I actually captured it, and we got video of it. It's on my Instagram, which I have to. Yeah, I'm not surprised, man. The internet quality is going to be bad. Um, Man, an echo. That sounds really bad. Damn, that sucks too, because I do really have some interesting stuff to talk about. So the streaming quality is pretty bad. Is that what you're telling me? I had a feeling because the my internet is just it's worse than usual tonight. Um, so at any rate, let me I'll tell you what, for those of you that can deal with the terrible sound quality. Um, okay, yeah, yeah. So here's the deal, basically, right? Like, in case some of you have not been following this, uh, from a couple of different, I guess, streams, I have been sort of intuiting this relationship between light, electromagnetic energy, and consciousness. Um, and I think it was like last week that I made some progress with the electromagnetic energy element of it. Um, we'll get to that, and thank you for asking, Noel. Obviously, better. I mean, I think I'm gradually getting better pulling out of it. So, thank you guys so much for your support. Really appreciate it. We still use more support, though. We're going to at least visit the Warrani village definitely next week for sure, at least to visit for a day. So, that's exciting. Really excited. And speaking of that, um, it actually puts me at odds with one of the theories presented by these physicists that are saying that consciousness collapses the wave, um, but it's also important to note that this particular group of physicists is now saying that it's not one individual. It has to be a network similar to a group of computer nodes that are exerting influence on these waves in order to get them to collapse. So it's not just one perception, which is, of course, like a call to unity from the subatomic world, which is interesting. So let's take a look at the first study. Hopefully I didn't navigate away from it. Okay, so um, in the last live stream, we were talking about how I had discovered that the brain is actually loaded with magnetite, and that parts of the brain that govern physical movement have higher concentrations of the magnetite. And so my theory was that somehow, light works with electromagnetic energy in order to exert influence on subatomic particles and get them to do stuff, right? This is what the law of attraction is about. This is what people are talking about when they talk about manifestation. And I've experienced a lot of things. If you guys follow my videos, then you know that sort of suggest that our consciousness does indeed have capacities that are beyond what we consider, normal. Precognition and telepathy. I don't know if I got to mention that the electromagnetic exchanges between brains were. I think I forgot to talk about that study. That also had gotten some support brainwaves and electromagnetic energy being an explanation for telepathy or the mechanism that facilitates it. Um, and so it turns out that electromagnetic energy and light emanated from our cells actually do have an influence on the subatomic realm. Let me give you the details. Uh, so, previous research had revealed that certain animal cells contain cryptochromes, which are proteins that are sensitive to magnetic fields. This is how animals are suspected to be able to, birds migrate and animals have this like natural direction. Um, it's these cryptochromes that are sensitive to magnetic fields. So there's a subset of cryptochromes called flavins, which are molecules that glow or autofluoresce when exposed to blue light. Anyone that is an occultist knows that blue light is said in the occult to be the light of Lucifer, right? Which is just an interesting side note because these cells that led to this discovery are called hell cells. You can't make this shit up, right? Hell cells, and it. The reason is that they are human cervical cancer cells. How somehow that led to that that name. I mean, it makes sense, right? Um, but they're loaded in the flavins, which made them good candidates for researching electromagnetic energy and its activity on cells or influence. So when hit with the blue light, the electromagnetic components in the cells glow or produce radical pairs. And what happens is a balancing act where the slower the spin of the pairs, the fewer molecules are unoccupied and available to fluoresce. And so um, magnetism can affect the spin of electrons. And so what you have is either spectron, or you have a spin going this way, spin going that way, or you have equal and opposite opposing spin. Does that sound familiar? Like I'm always talking about how the universe is the interaction of equal parts of opposing energies. And so in the last live stream, I said, well, I think maybe the positive, it's not quite equal and opposite. The positive is a little stronger. But now I'm kind of gravitating back to this equal and opposite idea because that's what we observe in electrons. Um, okay, so here is the really important part, though. The magnet caused a quantum change in the radical pairs that suppress the flavin's ability to fluoresce. So what this essentially means is that the mechanism through which electromagnetic energy is able to exert influence on subatomic energy is by way of limitation. And so, one of the ideas that I talk about a lot, for some reason my laptop just went black. One of the ideas that I talk about a lot is that nothingness is actually God. And so what this suggests, what this is telling us, is that what gives form and cohesion is actually negation. So it's nothing giving form by the mechanics of it are light and electromagnetic energy interacting. So pretty crazy because what is happening is that this idea that I have sort of intuited and put together in my subconscious mind about the way that electromagnetic energy and light interact to influence the energetic realm is being confirmed in studies. And it's like, a couple of weeks, it seems like, like I'm getting to a point, and then within a week or two, there are studies that will confirm whatever it is that I've intuited. So, super interesting stuff. The problem is now, though, that I was relying on notes for this live stream, and my laptop screen has just gone blank, which is disturbing. So maybe we can talk about something else. Well, okay, actually, here's that's something else. We really have to be careful about misapplications of interpretations of quantum physics. This is something that has happened a lot in the sort of New Age spirituality movement. For example, the double slit experiment is the origin of the theory that the observer and somehow some uh, unknown influence on our consciousness causes the wave to behave as either a particle or a wave. And interestingly, this article in Big Think, I put links to all these studies in the description, by the way. Um, but this article, or they're basically saying, scientists believe that consciousness is causing the collapse of the wave. But then they put a link to a video in the article, and if you click on it, it's a guy saying that physicists no longer really think that consciousness causes the wave to collapse. And so it's a very difficult. Oh, all my windows are closed. That's great. Uh, but I don't need them actually. I remember all this stuff. Uh, what is actually going on is that the wave doesn't actually collapse. What we experience is sort of an imprint that is about the relationship between our point of observation and the oscillation of the wave. But the wave doesn't stop and do something. The wave just continues on for all of eternity, and it doesn't ever collapse. And so, you see what I'm saying? It's like there are these interpretations of the observations and what the physicists are saying that seem like they may not be consistent with what the physicists are actually trying to communicate. And so if we are looking for a sort of causal basis for our metaphysics, that it complicates it if we cannot come up with a consensus. But the one line of reasoning is that an individual consciousness is generally not enough electromagnetic energy, basically, to compel particles or waves to collapse. But a group of observers is. And so there is a necessity for consensus in order to create reality, which means that what we are perceiving collectively is actually going to determine our experience. And so changing our individual perception is not necessarily enough to really have that kind of restructuring effect on our reality and our experience that we really need it to, especially considering the kind of stuff that's going on around the world at the moment. We really do need to see some massive upheaval and change. And so what is necessary for that, if we really want to see any kind of miraculous level of revolution, is that there is a consensus. People need to find unity in order to exert sufficient influence to cause the waves to collapse in the way that we need them to. So that's a big task. So many angry dummies in the world, what are we going to do with them all? Trying to catch my notes up here, so just bear with me, please. And if you guys have anything that any input, I'm happy to try to. Is everyone following along? Oh, and also, in the interest of like conceptual continuity and sort of understanding all of this stuff, I was in the last live stream kind of lamenting a lack of a visual aid, and if you look in the description, there are links to some videos, and one of those videos has a visual representation of waves moving through slits. And, one of the ideas that I've been kind of struggling to coax to emerge by a way of decoherence, right? Which is interesting, because what these physicists are saying is that the reality actually emerges through decoherence. Coherence comes from decoherence. Or another way to say that is order from chaos, right? I mean, that is an old, right? Solve et coagula. Old, right? And now physicists are saying that it's it's exactly it's exactly that. It's through a process of decoherence that symmetry and order arise. And so this concept that I've been trying to articulate, uh, the way that symmetry arises in um, the underlying structure, right, that gives rise to order and facilitates creation, uh, the oscillation of the wave, all you have to do is watch it to see how symmetry arises. And then complexity comes from waves overlapping. And that comes from antinomies, from opposing uh, positive and negative um, interactions. So a single wave oscillating creates symmetry, and then multiple waves create the complexity that gives rise to complex order. And then a group of observers is what creates the lattice work of order and very complex symmetry that allows higher life forms and consciousness and plants and all of these more sophisticated systems to arise. You can see it in the tree of life symbol extremely well. I mean, if you look at the oscillating waves, um, especially when they have been when they're overlapping, you can see the same pattern, and that's really what this tree of life is a glyph of, as these overlapping, undulating waves. So, I mean, we're getting really close to a totally coherent, you know, metaphysical model that is totally consistent with science and allows for sort of magic, in a sense, which is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Basically, using our consciousness to exert an influence on the energy of the universe in order to create our experience consciously, deliberately, and hopefully consistently with our highest self. And that is all supported by the underlying symmetry in these oscillating waves. There was more to that. I mean, we've kind of talked about how it is this limitation imposed by light that sort of implies that nothingness is the creator, because it is that limitation that gives rise to form. I mean, it just blew my mind to see that, you know, like, it's like right as I need these pieces to give coherence to my decoherence, these studies pop up, you know. By the way, do me a favor, guys. Hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon, and our GoFundMes. You know, if you can help us out, we really want to go and see the Warani and try to document the experience and help to raise awareness about their situation, which is not the greatest, not because their lifestyle isn't good, but because our actions are threatening it. And so this brings me to the dispute with the physicists. One of them said that a brain that did not have an arrow to delineate the direction of time would not have this quality of exerting influence on the wave in order to collapse the probability into an actuality, right? And the Warani are a people with almost no contact with civilization or modern thinking, and they only have their only temporal designation is ahorita, it's now. And I think that it's probably fair to assume from that ancient peoples, really, really ancient peoples, may not have had really a concept of before and after And so, that was interesting too. That these local indigenous people kind of gave me this idea that maybe that's not correct. And I'm not really sure why the temporal designation was considered essential according to this physicist's model. Um, but we can look it up. Just give me a second. I'll pull the study up and we'll see why he was saying that. Oh, I said I was going to mention some crypto stuff, and I'm going to. I haven't been talking much about it for a couple of reasons, but one of the main ones is that I am becoming increasingly skeptical that it is really a good way to redistribute the wealth and to level the playing field because I'm seeing a lot of the same dynamics, of course, developing very, very rapidly. And actually, because of the qualities of cyberspace not being as restrictive as like the external world, like real life. Um, I think these systems are developing the same qualities much more rapidly because things have a little bit more freedom. It's almost like in the cyber realm, things are moving much more quickly because they're not restrained by as many laws and circumstances and influences. And so what I'm getting at is that we have whales influencing the markets, um, and we have little groups of people centralizing the power. One of the big things about cryptocurrency was supposed to be that decentralization of power was going to be a huge thing, but now every time Elon Musk farts, the market does something, and Bitcoin dominance, every time it goes up, the whole market moves with it. So I'm not abandoning it entirely because I still think that conscious people need to empower themselves financially, and I think that Solana, Cardano, Ethereum, and MetaHero at the moment, maybe Terra, are basically guaranteed to 10x between now and January. So, not financial advice. I have more in common with Aleister Crowley than Warren Buffett, but pretty much definitely a fact. So, and Safe DMT, I promoted them. They failed. I've made a couple of bad calls, but overall, I figured this out with certainty. If you had distributed $1,000 over the 10 currencies that I've recommended since I started talking about this on this channel, you would have hundreds of millions of dollars now. And it's true. Mostly because of SafeMoon. But everything, Solana has 10x since I recommended it. Ethereum has doubled. Cardano has doubled. SafeMoon, 1,000x or something since the first time I mentioned it. So, if you had bought everything that I've mentioned and averaged it out, you would have killed it. So, not financial advice, but I would probably take my advice when it comes to cryptocurrency because my batting average has been pretty high. And honestly, Solana and Cardano and Terra and Ethereum, I mean, it's all you have to do is look at the charts and you just extend the pattern, right? So you see Bitcoin dominance is going down, and so its line is kind of dropping, and then you have Ethereum going up and up and up, and you can actually see where they're going to cross. And what that's going to mean is a death cross for Bitcoin. So it'll just plummet, Ethereum will take off, and it'll take Cardano and Solana with it, and then those will be the three big competing cryptocurrencies, in my opinion. It's just like, when Xerox disappeared in the late 80s because it couldn't compete with superior technologies that were based on it. The same thing is going to happen to Bitcoin. You can thank me later, or you can thank me now by sending some cryptocurrency to the wallet address in the description. Or you can support us on PayPal and Zelle or our GoFundMe's. The Warani thing is going to cost some money, and we really want to do it. Okay, so what were we talking about? Okay, I was going to look at the study again. Oh, and by the way, I do encourage you guys to look at the monster, man. That thing was ridiculous looking. Seriously, it's a spider with claws, and a shell. sort of. It's one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever seen in my life. So crazy though, you guys, to discover that I was correct about light and electromagnetic energy and consciousness and subatomic particles. And it's not really, me. This is something that occultists have been hinting at very directly for a long, long time. San Pedro shaman will all tell you this because this is one of the things that San Pedro reveals is the relationship between light and consciousness. And it's really no big secret. It's just, in my opinion, it's really powerful when mysticism and physics dovetail. And also, I think, one of the things that I've been saying on this channel for a long time is that gnosis, real gnosis, is knowledge that is actually true and relevant, that is acquired through non-ordinary means. So through contemplation, through revelation, through vision, through meditation, through entheogen use. And I think that over the last couple of months, I have established with certainty, because I've been doing it consistently. I've been presenting these ideas a few weeks before the research has come out online. So, I mean, you could say that it was just lucky guesses, a sequence of them, but I don't think so. And I think that really it shouldn't be that surprising, and it just shouldn't be that surprising, because really it's just about the interaction of electromagnetic energy. And I think that it even explains, like, precognition, because I think that once the subconscious mind even, can pick up on patterns in the electromagnetic energy, in the waves that are oscillating all around us, all the invisible waves, they're not really invisible. We see their manifestations in the physical world all around us all the time. And so the subconscious mind is always reading these patterns. And so, as I'm always saying, it's not really woo. It's just that there is a part of the mind that is interpreting the information that is being presented in the patterns that exist all throughout nature. This is why the Taoist master, when the student would ask him a question, he would say, sit and watch the leaf spin in the pond, and eventually whatever revelation was necessary would pop up into the student's mind. And so it is through this observation of the natural world that these things are revealed. This is what shamans do, really. Psychedelics or plant medicine, entheogens, however you want to term it, really sort of just take the veil off of the physical world so that you can have a more direct perception of the patterns that underlie everything. And I think this really direct observation allows you to do these things more deliberately. So, you can figure out all kinds of things that are apparently unknowable by ordinary means, just by observation of these patterns. It's not really about talking to spirits that are inanimated or disincarnate creatures or whatever that are just floating around all the time waiting for some shaman to talk to. You can think of it that way if you'd like, but it's really just about observing the wiring under the board and interacting more directly with the universal mind and the cosmic consciousness that gives rise to all the phenomenology. And that's it, And then also another things that shamans do when they're not in ceremony, when they haven't consumed any medicine, is they're observing the natural world and interacting with the natural world. Um, I mean, living here in the Amazon rainforest, uh, it's really extraordinary. Um, it's sort of like being confronted with the absurdity and the diversity of the subatomic realm in macro. And the interactions are just as sophisticated, just as improbable, and just as mysterious as anything that's happening on that level. Um, so I don't know. I think I got my point across. Thank you guys so much for spending this time with me and supporting. And we'll see you again very, very soon. If you're a patron, the next thing that's coming is the middle pillar ritual instructional video, which will be really good. And I think that it's a very, very powerful and very important ritual. Because, okay, you know what? Actually, I do need to continue because I said that I would talk about in the description what to do with this knowledge. And so, what we have to take away from all this, which we already knew, and I think it's fair to say we already all know all of this stuff, really, and it's just a matter of removing the obscurations and becoming aware that we know these things. But the light is what is limiting the waves of electromagnetic energy so that they have form. It's sculpting them in the same way that a sculptor would chisel bits of stone away. It's limiting to give structure and form. Decoherence to give coherence, right? Everything contains a contradiction, and all is arising from the interplay of antinomies. And so, what we have to do is focus our light beam, which is our consciousness, and know what we're exerting it on, why we're exerting it, and to associate ourselves with groups of people that have the same agenda, basically. And always remembering that the most complete set of talents and virtues is totally useless in the absence of willpower and discipline. So when you identify a toxic element in your environment, be it chemical, human, animal, whatever, get it out. Doesn't matter what it is or how dependent on it you are or any of that shit, because if you have dependence, Illuminostic has already made a video for you that tells you how to use LSD to rewire your brain, right? All you have to do is sit and use pranayama and a moderate dose of LSD, and you can rewire any addiction in a couple of hours. Like, you literally, at this point in your life, have no excuses. You can restructure your mind in any way that you see fit, in any way that is necessary for you, at any time. And I'm not trying to belie the fact that it is not as easy as I'm making it sound in theory, but if you do it, you'll find that it is that easy in practice. And of course, practice is much more efficacious than theory if you're looking to affect change. So, well, I mean, I think that it's unfortunate that you would consider being in a psychedelic state not being sober, because I think that no matter how you are achieving these states, you're just basically running a different program. And I don't see it that way. I think that, you can, if you want to make that commitment to do it without chemicals, it's just going to take you longer. I mean, more power to you. I'm not trying to discourage you. But the whole point of all this is that we have a bag of catalysts. We have a palette of tools that we know how to combine to use to basically throw rocket fuel on our process. And so, if you want to do it without a certain tool, people climb without ropes. I don't think that makes sense, but people do it, But the reality is that, this attitude that, you're better off doing something without chemicals, or that chemicals are somehow cheating or a crutch or whatever, if they're used correctly, that's not true. And it's actually an impediment to view things that way because you're just limiting your capacity to accelerate your growth. And if you feel like you've had too much interaction with these entheogenic compounds, it probably means that you've been using them incorrectly. Because in my opinion, there's no such thing really as overexposure. But you know what's going on in your world better. That's just my opinion, and it's only worth whatever it's worth. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful.